Okay.
Okay.
AC, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, and thank you for your service on UAC thus far. And thank you for your
I've enjoyed it. I mean, I really have enjoyed it.
You already did your interview, so I already had a chance to ask you questions, right?
Right.
So this is like the second time around here.
Right.
So maybe I can
ask good questions. So.
Maybe I can ask you different questions here. So, we've had the kind of fiber to the premise thing kind of like churning around for decades now, right?
Right.
And what do you think are like? What do you kind of given your perspective? What do you think are things that kind of are drivers for it, and what do you think are the things that have been kind of keeping it from becoming a reality?
Well, in terms of the drivers, and obviously there is people in the city who would like to see it expanded. They'd like to see fiber to the premises. We are taking a step forward. As I think you probably know, we're going to issue an RFP in June to establish a fiber to the node network that will be important to rolling out the advanced metering infrastructure, which I do think is important.
Sure.
Part of the RFP, as I understand it, we haven't actually seen it yet, but as I understand it, will be to develop a business case, not only for fiber to the node, but also for fiber to the premises, so that we can say, all right, if we already have fiber to the node, what would it take to go to fiber to the premises, and how would we use that capability? So that will be important because I think it'll also give us some idea of what the expense would be of making that extension to the premises. I'm certainly not an expert in this area, but I understand that the wireless technology that will be used to connect the meters to the nodes may also be useful for other things that people are looking to the fiber to the premises to do. So I think all of that needs to be looked at because it would be expensive. And we need to make sure that we would get a payback from it, either in terms of a financial payback, we could get people to subscribe or that it would provide a service that isn't otherwise provided, given the fact that we do have commercial providers.
So what do you think the benefits would be if we did fiber to the premise to the average Palo Alto resident?
The benefit would be that first you'd have faster broadband, for sure. Second, Palo Alto would be able to control at least some of the content on the network, and presumably could use that for programs that would be of particular interest to the people in the city.
Okay. So faster internet all sounds good.
All sounds good. The question is, what's the marginal utility?
Yeah. Like for instance, in this office right now, the internet is truly horrible. So,
well, I'm surprised because I thought we were extending the city's network to Coverly.
Maybe it hasn't happened
yet.
Well, if it has happened, something's wrong.
Okay. No, I seriously, I thought that Coverly was, we've extended wireless to the golf course and places like that. I assume Coverly would be one of the places.
Yeah, I don't know. I do know, in some places, like even to my house, I can't get fiber, right? Some places you can. You could get fiber.
Right.
You could. Some places, I think maybe like 9% of the city you actually get fiber. But like a lot of other places, you can't. Right?
I'm a little surprised because you're in College Terrace.
Yeah.
It's not that far from the research park. I thought the line went right by the research park.
The most ironic thing, okay? The most ironic thing is I haven't seen them lately, so maybe it's not there anymore. I would see the Google fiber trucks driving right through my neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
I think, why can't you stop here?
Because there is a node or a connection point on Park Avenue, and we're increasing that. One of our CIP projects in the fiber utility next year is to increase capacity between Park Avenue and the research park. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how close you have to be to get a line
I don't know.
directly.
But okay, so
I'll bet there are people who know the answer, and we could find them.
Probably, yeah. So it sounds like we get faster internet. How do you think that would do in terms of like affecting the cost, like the cost of internet? Do you think that it's going to lower it much?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, because it really would depend on what kind of programming would be available on the city internet.
You mean like television program?
Yeah,
Okay.
because you have to compete with Comcast and AT&T, right? Those are the competitors.
But some people, like, in fact, I've even think about it myself, like getting rid of my phone service and getting rid of my television service and just doing everything, like they go over the top, right? Everything on the internet, like everything streamed, like Netflix or Hulu or whatever.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just wondering. I'm wondering if people just want really, really fast internet, and then everything else they can buy a la carte.
Maybe, but how much are they prepared to pay for that? I guess, and somebody would have to do a comprehensive market survey about what would people like that. What price point would be attractive to them, and is that a price point that's achievable by locally owned internet? And then would Comcast and AT&T be willing to come down and meet it? Obviously, it depends on how many subscribers there are, right?
Okay. I think one of the big issues with fiber to premise is the capital cost to fund it, right? Because it's some enormous number to do something like that, right? What's your thoughts in terms of how do we fund something like this?
Mind if I sit in for this one? Because I have an email from Dave Yuan, and I can provide some of the numbers for this.
Great.
Okay. So it cost an estimated $78 million to build a municipal-owned FTTP network, and according to a consultant study, it would cost. It's not possible to achieve fully user-financed FTTP in Palo Alto. So, given that, what are your opinions on it?
Well, so you've got two issues, right? You either so if it's not going to be user-funded, you're not going to be able to build it into the rates. You're going to have to do a bond issue. No, I mean, unless the general fund is prepared to.
Well, last year we ran a deficit, so I mean, and we had record revenue, so it's unlikely it's going to come from the general fund, right? So it'd be nice though.
I'm not surprised to hear that. No,
Yeah.
I think that's right. So I think I think that's one of the big problems. Is this something that the voters will want to do a bond issue on?
Yeah, I don't know. What's your sense?
I'm a little skeptical, frankly. I don't know. Things could change by the time we get to a point where. But as I say, I think going through what we're going through now, with an RFP, building out the fiber to the node will give us a much better handle on what the cost would be to extend it further, and I think may give us a better sense of what the appetite would be.
But given the fact that the city has consistently avoided not doing FTTP, why do you think we should still continue doing FTTN, especially when there is no indication that we'll continue to FTTP? Like, the whole point of FTTN is to extend to FTTP.
Well, the FTTN is going to be used for the advanced metering infrastructure, which I think smart grid, basically, which I think really is important and practical, because that is going to enable our utilities to do a number of things. It's going to enable users to be able to get a much better handle on their utility usage and when it's advantageous to charge your car, for example, as opposed to not charging your car. It's also going to allow for leak detection, both gas and water leak detection. It's going to enable us to fix electric outages faster because it'll able us to pinpoint the outages.
Well, there are plenty of benefits, as you mentioned, about having the metering, but isn't it inherently in the public interest to pursue something like, oh my goodness, isn't it inherently in the public interest to pursue FTTP regardless of the financial impact, especially considering how part of the cost will be offset by user fees and financing?
I don't know that. I mean, that's in part what we're trying to learn from this the RFP that is going to go out, is what the business case would be for. I mean, we can't spend money on anything that it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
There's got to be a business case.
I think what would be nice is, do you guys do polling on the UAC? Do you guys ever try to poll residents?
The utilities do.
Okay. And do you guys influence on what goes on the poll?
We have, yes. We did a poll a year or so ago on some issues, and we had some. I know we reviewed the questions. I'm trying to remember whether we reviewed them before they went out or after.
Well, I think you guys should, right? Because I think it's important for the UAC to kind of have the pulse of the community, right? To understand, like because on council it's hard to be an expert in every single topic.
Sure.
Right? But as commissioners, you guys can become subject matter experts, right? You can understand the community on a particular topic, right?
Okay. Well, that's good. Let me make a note.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. Just so that because we're trying to represent the community, right? So that we kind of understand where the community stands on things, right?
The key, however, the important point is to ask questions that really get to people's opinions. Because if you just say, "Would you like faster broadband?"
That's not good enough, right?
Right?
That will cost.
Exactly.
We should want to pay, extra taxes for that, right? Or
right.
Yeah. No.
So you have to design the questions in a way that get to meaningful answers.
Yeah. It's kind of like, would you like $1 million? Yes, of course.
Yeah, but I think if you consistently evaluate these things on a cost basis only model, like things like roadways, it makes zero sense to build roadways, because roadways don't pay taxes. Roadways, there's no user fees or something like that. But I think everyone can agree that we should build out roadways to ensure, because we have a lot of indirect benefits.
Here's the difference, and that is, we already have broadband in Palo Alto.
Well, we already have some roads, but we still repave them and stuff like that.
Well, all right, you're now repairing the infrastructure. But if we don't have a situation where you have a private company that's building roads, and then the city comes in and says, well, we're going to build our roads to supplement the private company's roads. And that's a little bit what you're asking, what the question is for FTTP. So that's why, as I say, you need to really figure out who would use it, what they would use it for. Is it something that isn't adequately served already, and what's the cost?
I mean, I think it's worked. It's not something it's untested before. We've actually seen quite a lot of it in other states, like Chattanooga. It's probably the most famous example. I think it's not a question of whether we should do it in Palo Alto. It should be when should we start, or whatever.
Okay. I'm not sure everybody shares your opinion, and that's one of the reasons why having a survey would be useful. If everybody did, that's great. Then the citizens are saying, yes, we will pay for it, either through our user fees or the interest on the bonds, or however it's financed.
But we don't have all these surveys on the public safety building, but we still do it anyway, and it costs a lot more too, right? Doesn't it make more sense to just go with it without asking them? Because we've already seen a lot of support for it unlike maybe the public safety building.
Not in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I think it's. I mean, the public safety building. We did a lot of study on it. You understand that issue a lot better than I do, but there was a kind of a demonstrated need for a new public safety building. I think that we're still looking at the need for a city-owned fiber network. Well, we have a fiber network, but one that's extended to every household.
Okay, so let me ask you kind of different set of questions, which is on utility rates. Right?
Yeah.
So we've had a fairly healthy increase in utility rates. Would you agree?
Yes. I mean, the different utilities go up and down at different times.
Yeah.
But yes, as have our neighboring communities. I mean, the one. We just looked at the gas rates, and we pushed back on why is it structured the way it is, and we have several issues. I mean, commodity costs we don't have much control over. We have operating costs, a lot of which are salaries and so on, which we have some control over, but in fact, our salaries have been below market, and as a result, we've had trouble hiring people. So one of the other issues we have control over, obviously, is capital improvements. We've gone to doing capital improvements every other year.
Sure.
Major like gas main replacements. Both because we hope to get a better price on the project by making it a bigger project, but also it staggers the impact of the capital cost. I mean, I think that it's something that you always have to be vigilant about. But at least in my experience, the utilities have thought these problems through and have good reasons for why they're doing. We have rate stabilization reserves for the utilities. In fact, last year and again this coming year, our revenues will not match the costs. So we are drawing down on our reserves. You don't want to do that forever.
Oh, no, I mean, for the general fund, we had the same issue. So I totally agree with you on that, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's you're kind of hollowing out the system, right?
Right. And we have a pretty good record of running safe, reliable utilities. I've been a little concerned about the number of outages that we've had.
Was there a systemic driver for some of these outages we've had recently? They seem to be kind of random, but I don't know if there's more of a...
It's random. It has, I mean, some of it, the infrastructure is aging a bit. I mean, the last one we had, there was water got into an elbow, and some of them have been due to Mylar balloons getting caught in the electric wires.
I guess one of the reasons to underground utilities.
Yeah, although undergrounding has its own issue, which is it makes it somewhat harder to find the problem and harder to get to it.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I mean, undergrounding.
It's also expensive.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
I think aesthetically, I think it's wonderful, but there are some issues.
Okay. So we have the benefit of owning our own utilities, right? Which most cities don't have, right?
Right.
Do you know how much, like if we were to look at, like a balance sheet, like how much assets this utility has as a whole? Do we know? I mean, I know.
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I just, I've seen a lot of income statements, but I don't remember looking at a balance sheet. So I don't know what it is. What I do know is, of course, the utilities makes a fairly healthy contribution to the general fund
Yes.
as a return on assets,
Yeah.
which I actually think is really a great benefit
Yeah.
to the city,
Mhm.
because in effect it means that people who pay large utility bills, which are largely commercial enterprises, are helping contribute to the general fund.
Yeah. No, that is definitely true, right? And I think the question is probably because I've heard talk from people, like you hear both sides. Like people say, well, why do we have our own utilities? What's the benefit we're getting, right? And some people say, well, it's great we have our own utilities because then we can get exactly what we want, right? Because like for instance, we try to be a leader in environmental things, right? And so we try to drive that really hard, right? And then that's one argument, right? Like we have like full control to do exactly what the values of the community wants. The other one is, well, given the amount of assets this utility has, right? If we were to, let's say, merge it with another utilities, what would, like, if you look at it from like a pure financial point of view, right? And so I was just curious to know, what's your thoughts in terms of our utilities, in terms of like, are we like maximizing our return on assets, type of perspective from our utilities?
Well, let me turn
Well,
it this way. Would you rather be getting service from PG&E, which is a practical matter, which is what we would end up with?
Yeah.
I mean, our rates are below PG&E. I think our service is better than PG&E. I mean, the customer service is better than PG&E. I think that the citizens of Palo Alto are far better off having our own utilities. I don't know if we were to sell the utilities off, I don't know how much they would be worth and how much that would, but we would certainly not have the same kind of control over, as you said. One of the goals of the Palo Alto utilities is to provide sustainable service. I think we are a leader in that. There is a cost to that. But that, so far at least, is a cost that people have been willing to pay because they value the sustainability. We would have no control over that.
Okay. So I think that definitely makes sense in terms of pros and cons. Do you have a sense as to how the utility payers feel right now about the rates? Are they okay with the increases? Do you see any pushback or any feeling?
So we haven't done a survey that would ask that specifically. I'm sure if you asked the question, would you like utility rates to be lower, they would say yes. But the utility has an 86% customer satisfaction rate. That's pretty good. That tells me that people, for the money that they are paying, people appreciate the service they're getting. The values that the CPAU maintains, and they recognize and appreciate that our rates are lower than the utility rates in other cities.
Okay. Okay. And let's see. Going forward, what do you think are some of the big things that UAC should tackle this year in the city? What do you think are things that we want to make happen?
Well, I think it's important to get this metering infrastructure in place, and that's something that I know that the UAC will be on top of. We're looking right now at how the city accounts, our carbon accounting, if you will. I mean, the extent to which how we define carbon neutrality and whether we're actually defining it in a way that is accurate.
Sure.
That's kind of a policy issue. I think there is an important issue that the UAC is starting to talk about, or not starting, has been talking about, but it's just disaster preparedness, resiliency. What happens if we have a big earthquake or flood or whatever, and trying to make sure that the city will be protected. I mean, one of the things that I said this at the interview, one of the things that I learned during one of these outages is, if you look, we're so dependent on electricity. When the electricity goes down, that's a serious problem for people to manage.
Sure.
And so I think it's incumbent on, it's so easy for utilities to worry about making sure the lights go on every day, water comes out of the tap, and so on, that they're not thinking about a disaster. They are thinking about it, but I think it's something that the UAC plays a role in keeping that discussion moving forward.
I think I would guess people in the city want to have like a high availability, right? They want to make sure that
100%,
right? Yeah.
100%. I mean, we had I think 70. I'm trying to remember now the exact. 70 hours of outage last year. That's a little bit higher than is what the utilities are aiming for. So I think
Is that a lot or not a lot?
not a lot.
Okay.
Not a lot. It's not a lot. But we'd like to keep it lower than that.
I don't know what's up with that word. That is crazy. Okay. Any other thoughts? Any last words?
No, I mean, I other than that, it's been an honor for me to serve on the Utilities Commission. I'd like to continue to serve.
Okay. Well, thank you for your service. And I think, the thing that I think we're blessed here in the city is that we have so many talented people who volunteer their time to serve the city, and I'm incredibly grateful. So thank you for your service.
And for yours.
Well, trying hard. So.
Well, I know how hard you work.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
So.